Welcome to Love and Dialogue, the podcast where love speaks. I'm Tristan.
And I'm Brianna. We're so excited to have you join us as we explore the ups, downs, and all the in-betweens of relationships in all forms, whether it's with a partner, a friend, or family.
Whether you're here for heartfelt stories, honest advice, or just a good laugh, you're in the right place.
Relationships come in all varieties and dynamics, and we're on this journey together, sharing our experiences and learning along the way.
Every week, we dive into real conversations about what it takes to build and nurture meaningful connections in our lives.
So let's dive in together and see where this love-filled journey takes us, no matter what kind of relationship you're navigating.
Thanks for tuning in to Love and Dialogue. Let's get started. Welcome back, folks. Welcome back to Love and Dialogue podcast with your host, Tristan and the lovely
Brianna.
What do we got for the folks today, Bri?
Alrighty, so as you see, we have some lovely guests joining us again today. We have Jeanette and Andre, a lovely couple that we've known for some time. Say hello to the folks, guys.
Hey.
Good morning.
Alrighty, so today we are going to be talking about teamwork. What makes the dream work? As a couple, kind of like, what does that look like for you? How do you guys accomplish that teamwork mentality? What struggles come up with that? And so we're going to dive a little deep into that and have some conversations about it. All right.
Let's do it.
All right. So jumping right into it, how do we overall feel about our teamwork, right? Like, is it something that came easy for you guys, or is it hard to develop?
It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's exciting. It is an exciting struggle, I think.
Mhm.
It is the kind of struggle that you feel when progress is being earned, and you know that you have put in that work. So it is oftentimes people who are driven to do things, they don't take the time to realize the success that they've actually achieved. In fact, they're looking for the next success and forgetting what the focus is on the next thing. And so I think it's an exciting, especially with kids in the mix. It the challenge is extra, and that's something for me personally. My personality type craves and thrives on chaos or lack of, I think so. What do you think?
And on the other end,
Yeah.
I don't thrive on chaos, but just like Andre had mentioned, we have children. We have 3 girls. I would love everything to be great, smooth sailing. Like I just don't like conflict and chaos. I want peace, but obviously that's not realistic. That does not happen all the time, and I would love that. But what I do love about our team is that we balance each other out. He's naturally aggressive. Naturally, he's like, yeah, guns out, like let's do this. Very gun ho. And for me, I'm like to sit back and research and make sure that the plan is all good. Like everything is all good. And I think that we balance each other out in that sense. And in the very beginning, it was very hard to kind of understand, because I think when we come together in a relationship, we have this idea of what that relationship is going to look like. And it's not fair, but we do it, right? Unintentionally. In the very beginning, I will say that there was a time where like I would just want to recoil or like step back and kind of reflect. But now what we do is when there's a conflict or when there's a situation, I unnaturally will try to stay engaged, stay focused, because we choose each other, right? Like we intentionally choose, I want to be with you. I love you. Like sometimes we have to remind ourselves out loud, I love you, and this situation is getting me upset. I'm annoyed. I'm frustrated. But at the end of the day, like, I want you, like I choose you. And so like there are some hard lessons learned.
I definitely want to ask about, from an individual perspective, on your mindsets when you're working through those challenges. How are you taking your thoughts and working with the other person. Like, if you want to take us through that, like the mindset shift that you have from an individual perspective to come together.
For because we have put in work, having to learn how to accept ourselves. Because starting the relationship early on, we did attempt that, and so it was very frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
And part of why it was frustrating is because we didn't understand the way we thought we did ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So Jeanette sometimes might question her self value,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I would go the opposite end because I felt like I had no self value. So I made my own self value. So I had this complex. I'm self made, and nobody's gonna tell me I'm this. And so I had to redirect and figure out why exactly do I think that, and why am I overcompensating? And Jeanette had to learn about why she was undercompensating
Mm-hmm.
for things. And once we did that work on ourselves together, and that meant that I had to spend time talking about the great things about Jeanette,
Yeah.
which was sometimes not always welcome. Interestingly, right? Because and I was like, "Whoa, I just complimented her. Why'd you get mad?" Right? And then she may say something to me that may sound as like a down step. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Did she just try to step on my fire?" I'm king, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in the midst of it, she was
Mm-hmm.
helping me to develop a level of humility. Once
Mm-hmm.
those years went through, I think now we spend this extra time of going, hey, I'm feeling this thing. I don't really think that they're saying what my brain is feeling like they're saying. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask. Now, this is where the challenge comes is you might ask the right question at the wrong time, or sometimes the wrong question at just that right spicy time, whether it be a hormonal time for me as well. We like to say, oh man, maybe she's having a hormonal episode. We have come to realize from recognizing, as a person in medicine, recognize that men go through hormonal shifts as well. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'll
Why,
say that
yes,
to
they
her.
do. Why, yes, they do.
So how do we do it? As we're engaging, we constantly have to be checking in on ourselves.
Yeah.
Where am I?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Am I at that? I haven't slept for 24 hours,
Mm-hmm.
or am I at that? Hey, I really want to do this thing right now, and you asking this question is interrupting.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to see it, and that is not as easy as it seems. This morning
Mm-hmm.
was a classic example of that because it went from you being mad, and then at the end of the conversation, it was very different.
Yeah, we were laughing.
Yeah.
So what
It's
happened?
so I woke up very ready for a battle. Let's just call it that.
So we didn't sleep in the same room last night,
Yeah, because
right?
we have a sick child and we wanted to make sure, monitor that she doesn't have any fevers overnight.
Yeah.
This morning, it was just such a rush. I also, for me, w- we're just gonna pull out there. My love language is
Yeah.
quality time and it's physical touch. So I love sleeping in the same bed as Andre because, we're cuddling, even though like at the end of the night, we're like on opposite ends because like, it gets too hot. You know what I mean? But going back to the story. So this morning, we're sleeping in separate rooms and then just trying to get ready to go to ballet. And it's a rush. And so it's just this go sense, right? There's no slowness. There's no gentle moments at all. And so I think in my mind, I am very focused, not tunnel vision, but just streamlining, right? So morning was such a rush. We left without saying goodbye. And we always make it a habit that whenever we leave the house, we always say bye to each other, right? No matter what, we try to give a hug or a kiss or something. And we just didn't do that. We just ran out of the house. And it was just sort of like this sort of morning set off like moments. It was like a domino, just like things just falling down.
The issue began to marinate that you hadn't recognized. So
Sure.
these problems have to marinate, and then we start getting in, and we start discovering, and
Hmm.
this beautiful sequence of madness. So talk about that. Like, where did it start? Like, so that first after you left the house, I
Hmm.
gave you a call to say something, and I said, "Hey, yeah, I see that you guys left. And he didn't say goodbye. And then I followed up with, hey, next time, I know you're rushing out, just say bye for two reasons. One, the smallest child was not in a location that I could see, and I called out and found out and realized, hey, she was moving towards, she was safe.
Mm-hmm.
But just in case, as a first responder, crazy things go through, right? And then the second thing is, I'd like to hear a goodbye. I'd like to say, have a safe ride.
Mhm.
So they had so there was the safety part, and then there was the selfish part, right? So I said that, and then said, hey, for future, this is what we're going to do. Now Jeanette was going. This morning when she woke up, I saw her, so I got her there, and I know she likes peace. So I asked the question of, hey, is there anything I can do to help? Because I don't want to be in the way. Because when Jeanette's going, if I'm out of the way, she can have her peace. So you know what happened? The opposite. Jeanette said, oh, no, I don't need anything. So you know what I did? I went right back to bed because I wanted to create the peace. But while I was lying in bed, I was listening to the speed of what was going on outside. And I was like, it doesn't sound like a whole lot of peace going on right now. So I got out of bed and started getting it. So I got into action. Anyways, they left. So my desire to get her the peace that she needed actually created the opposite. In fact, instead of saying to her, hey, is there something I could have done? What I learned was, hey, you know what? Recognize it and start doing some things. And then let her tell me, hey, can you back up a little bit? And then because again, in her piece, me asking the question, can I do something? Added a task to her. Because now she has to think, oh, so that's what I recognize. And then
so that brings up a good point that you so as I'm listening, I'm also thinking when we're talking about the teamwork perspective is that you're more going to be the initiator, and Jeanette, you more would stay bottled up until the cap is released.
And yes, and so when I said no this morning, it was so that because recognizing that he came off of a 24-hour shift, and yesterday he didn't have the time to rest at all because we were trying to handle just doctor's appointments. And so I was trying to be mindful, right, of like, hey, he needs to rest because no one can thrive on a 24-hour no sleep, right?
Yeah.
And so and so like me trying to meet him where he's at, I'm like, okay, like also trying to tend to him in the ways that I know that I can tend, right? But then I have one of the other babies waking up, and Anais is still in bed, and then it's like 10 minutes past, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're about to be late. And so then I think like at that moment, I was like, I do need help. But I was just, again, tunnel vision on the go, just getting things done that I didn't out loud say, hey, I need the help. Actually, I do need the help.
A lot of our struggles stem not because we don't want to help each other, but it's because we're actually looking out for each other.
That's what I was just about to say. That's all I hear is the teamwork aspect, right? It's like you guys can interpret what each other needs from each other without even saying it out loud. And so then the issue comes into play when that communication piece is missed. Is like, hey, again, we're all trying to interpret what's going on. We're all trying to figure out, read the room, read the situation with the context clues because nobody's actually communicating in that moment what is needed. And so that is the hard part about teamwork and finding that balance is like, okay, who is going to step in? And I like what Andre said about like, hey, I realize that like, no, we're not settling down. Things are amping up. I just need to step in. And I think, and I can resonate with this as well. It's like sometimes, because you are like when we're women and we're pretty dominant women, I think it's hard for us to ask for the help, right? And so we're like, oh yeah, we can do it, especially from Jeanette's thought process of I'm trying to protect him, right? And let him get his sleep. So let me just do this and make it easier for him. So again, it's hard. It's really, really hard to find the balance in all of that.
I saw the success when Jeanette just came home because she came home with groceries. And we knew we were coming on for this interview. So the first thing I said, because of what we learned this morning, is I said, hey, here's what we're going to do. With a smile on my face and a change in the tone in my voice, I got the groceries. You go do the log on. Why? Because I know she's faster at doing that. And I can put things away pretty quickly and get things. And I already know the lay of the land of what was going on while she was away.
Yeah.
And we were able to accomplish that.
In the midst of High five, babe. Oh, no, that was not good. That was not good.
No.
We got to do another one. There we go.
yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Recognizing what we're good at, and then sort of allowing that person to take, lead on it. And as you said, we are dominant, right? I am pretty dominant.
I think she's a very powerful woman. Yeah.
And so sometimes I have to also be humble, right? Or sorry, like take it down a notch, right? And say and recognize, and that goes into pride and ego. I probably am not the best person to accomplish this at this time, right? And I also think that you don't have to downplay, skill sets or strengths and weaknesses. It's not that. It's just sometimes we're in an emotional state that we cannot handle something, right? For example, continue on this morning. I was in an emotional state where I was not ready to handle a conversation. And I think that I probably could have best acknowledged that up front, say, hey, like I probably need some time, and then can we jump back into this conversation? But I didn't. And then we also had a very heated conversation. And Andre,
You thought I was here? Oh, all right.
yeah, but you like battles, so it was heated.
Different interpretations.
Yeah, it was heated. He likes.
I thought it was a very productive conversation.
Yes, it was very productive. Absolutely, it was, and I think what Andre, he's very patient with me, and he will. I can be very cold sometimes when I'm in a situation, or we're in a situation, and I don't have the emotional capacity to handle that at that moment. And then Andre will step back and say, hey, this is how it's coming across. Is that how you were intending it to come across? And then afterwards, whether pride or ego is stepped aside, right? I might say, hey, no, like that's not my intention. But I also have to check my tone, because even though I might be saying the right words, the tone that it's being delivered is not matching what I'm saying. And I think that is very important key, and when we're communicating, because we love having communication or just like dialoguing, and it's great, it's fun, we're laughing, like full belly laugh. But I mean, the reality is we're talking about bills, finances, schedule. Those are hard stuff. And so we have to sometimes recognize and acknowledge, hey, we're talking about this, and it's not going to be rainbows and butterflies. But we still have to say it in a nice, compassionate tone. We still have to kind of gauge how we're delivering whatever we're discussing.
One of the things that we thought we would start doing today, or we'll try, and maybe and then we'll start doing it again the next day, and maybe we've recognized that exact thing. Sometimes beginning doesn't have just one chance. Beginnings, we have to tell ourselves there can be beginnings of the same thing every single day. But what we have to not do is not stop trying to do it. So one of the things we said is, how about we shift the first encounter in the morning? Whatever happens, let's do it with love. The house is on fire. Let's somehow, we got to run out of the house. But let's gather each other, and or whether it mean like holding somebody. My Jeanette might, I might need to talk to her that way. I am a words of affirmation kind of individual. So Jeanette may need to say something to me, and for me to say something to her might not be the way to go, but maybe I could give her a little snuggle or something, So we thought we would do that, and that's what happened this morning. I said Jeanette came in hot this morning. I was like, man, you came in hot. And because I'm a words of affirmation person, that affected me. And so I spoke to her about it. It didn't matter to her.
Also, Andre's in the Army. So when he goes on deployment, that is a huge shift.
Yeah.
In terms of everyday task, everyday living, routine. And so when he comes back, again, we kind of have to have a discussion even before him returning, saying, hey, and for me, I love streamlining, so that I could get things done. because I have 3 girls and there's other things. I'm a full working mom, like a full-time working mom. And so there's a lot of to-dos, right? And I want to make sure that the transition is also graceful. It's also acknowledging um, where he's at, because when he's on deployment, he's away from family. So I also have to acknowledge that that trauma, right, of not being with family and missing out on birthdays, missing out on life events. And so before, it didn't used to be this thing, but now, like, coming back on deployments, we're talking about, hey, let's talk about this. How are we going to transition? And then what that's going to look like. We're kind of setting the tone of what that looks like, of what the transition, when the transition happens, and then if things need to be revised.
Figuring out where are we at.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I mean, kind of tying it back to this whole teamwork thing, and kind of even how you guys described your morning and what that was like, right? And how Jeanette kind of just goes, right? And I think, again, bringing up where you guys are and kind of the transitional items in your relationship that are very big, right? Andre being deployed and leaving for a certain amount of time, and then you kind of having to step in and streamline, right, to find what works, right? So then when you're reintegrating that piece and that teamwork piece, because it goes from teamwork looks different when 2 people are in 2 separate places, right? And so then you have to come back together and redefine what that teamwork looks like for you. And so what I'm hearing from you guys today is that's what you're doing. You're in the work of redefining what that teamwork looks like for you.
Yeah.
You're figuring out what's working, what's not working. Hey, let's tweak this a little bit here. And I think even what Andre was talking about, like, with language, like, that's a conversation we have a lot about tone and about, like, what is said and, like, the meaning behind it. Like, I can interpret things very differently than what he says sometimes, and he's like, but that's not what I said. I'm like, but that's what I heard. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like having the conversation about those differences, I think, is really hard to do. And it's hard to do it in a space, in the unemotional space, because it's like we're all feeling it in that time. And so it's how do you have those hard conversations when those feelings are so strong?
And that's exactly what you said, conversations. And I applaud you too. The biggest theme that I took out of it all was the communication piece. I mean, it doesn't look the same for all couples, right? But you guys have found a way from ground zero to today to be able to find that communication strategy that works with both of you. And it seems like, I mean, every day is going to be something new, right? But that you have that conversation to get you through whatever situations, rifts, successes, to keep you guys going and staying strong. I think that's the biggest piece. And I commend you guys for that.
Right? Evolution and ascent can't happen without a little bit of soreness, right? And we're doing something, a self-talk that I say to myself is, I am not defined by my thoughts. So a lot of times, Jeanette may say something and I may feel a thing. And I have to quickly, if I can, activate that time. Sometimes it doesn't always happen intelligently, but it's a discipline that I do. I'm patient with her. That's not initially what was going to come out. It was a very different emotion in response. But then she would say something, it would trigger something. And then that thought of, I am not defined by my thoughts. Just because I'm thinking anger, I'm thinking that she's being rude or whatever, I'm not defined by that. I am a loving husband. That I am a present human. I respect myself. So then the action, whatever was going to come, I have to ask myself, are you going to respect yourself now? Are you going to be respectful to her? Are you fulfilling the loving husband task that you so desire? And in that moment, all of a sudden, now that was slow initially, but it's become a lot more rapid fire in terms of how I receive the feedback. So I used to be a lot more hurt because I'm a very sensitive individual. So not a lot of people notice in my work world. They're like, this guy's a machine. But I mean, I'm very good at what I do, right? However, but there's a part, but I think that was a big compensation I developed to hide this very soft, emotional child that I am because of childhood traumas that I experienced. And I let that down with Jeanette. So when Jeanette comes off, it can hit that and it can ignite a very angry child that's locked inside me. And I recognize that.
Can I
Mhm.
That's part of
just
the
say
teamwork, I
though,
think. Yeah.
the fact that I mean, you're describing some really hard work right now. Like, let
Mhm.
me just also say that, like, to be able to articulate and be able to make the connections of what's coming up for you and how that's showing up in your relationship because of what you've experienced, that's
Mhm.
no small task. Okay. First of all, like, that is some hard work that you've clearly done for yourself to be able to show up for Jeanette in this way. You know what I mean? And I think that that is part of, I mean, we talked about in one of our episodes about, we were debunking myths, and one of them was like that relationship shouldn't be hard or something like that, and like love shouldn't be hard, and we were like, what? Like, this is
Yeah.
the most crazy thing that I've ever heard, because I think what happens a lot of the time is a lot of relationships don't make it because they think it's supposed to be easy and
Yeah.
sunshines and rainbows all the
Yeah.
time, but that's just not the case, because we're individuals literally combining our lives together, right? And that comes
Yes.
with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And the work that he's done, I've seen it, and we constantly are working through. I mean, we've talked about, the hard stuff. And that also, when I was coming together in this relationship, just, kind of time onto that train of thought, I didn't necessarily do that inner child work.
Mhm.
And I remember just all of these events that we've gone through, that we've overcome, like the obstacles, and a lot of them stemmed from it. And I remember this past year, a lot of stuff just happened, and we were not in a really good place. And I think that led me to do that inner child work, go to therapy, seek counseling, and then just kind of look and journal about that, because as a person who does internalize, I mean, we all said it out loud, right? But I do tend to internalize it because I don't want to have that outer, like that just outer conflict in my environment. And I try to maintain it, but that necessarily is not conducive to a nurturing, healthy relationship, healthy environment. And so that is so hard. But going back to what you were saying before, is the inner thoughts. That is something that we have those inner thoughts that are not productive for our relationships, right? And it's something that is a defensive mechanism, is a coping mechanism. And we have to, acknowledge for what it is, and set it aside and say, hey, like, I'm going to choose us. And sometimes there has to be a mantra, because at that moment I might be very heated, and I might want, but I might be coming in hot, and I might have to say in my mind, that inner dialogue, I choose this, I choose us, I choose us, I choose us, so that I can soften how I'm going to approach Andre, how I'm dialoguing, how I'm, what words I'm choosing, because we might be have a great tone and everything, but the words that we're choosing is also like, why are you, why are you choosing those kind of words?
Yeah.
Those
I think as we're talking, I'm realizing that you guys have a similar dynamic to, I didn't, I mean, I know, obviously, Jeanette, I've known you for a really long time, and I know that
yes.
we have some similarities, but like, I feel like we show up similarly in our relationship, as far as like, I am the internalizer. I'm running a mile a minute in my brain before I even
Hmm.
say one thing out loud. You know what I mean? Or like,
Hmm.
he's like, you're really anxious. I can tell that you're thinking about a lot of things right now. I'm like, yeah, it's on my mind. And it's like, I think our work worlds are very different as well. And just like, I don't know, I just noticed that as we are talking today, like how
Yeah.
similarly, like, and he's very much like, I might be trying to engage in maybe of a more spicy conversation, and he's like, what are we doing right now? Like, he doesn't feed into it, you know what I mean? Which I think helps
Yeah.
for the balance of our relationship for sure. We call it balance. Balance is also the survival, I feel like, of teamwork for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, people like to say what there's no I in team, and
Hmm.
I beg to differ. I say, why not? There should be, because what happens is we constantly say, teamwork is about the other person. But what happens is when team members start forgetting about themselves,
Mm-hmm.
it means that sometimes I do need to give Jeanette that space
Mm-hmm.
to think about herself. So yes, there is no I.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there should be. So
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you.
that's it.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Love and Dialogue. We have had some really good conversations. I think we could take a lot of these conversations and make multiple episodes to kind of be able to build on them a little bit more. I would love to talk more about kind of your guys' dynamic of transitioning back and what that was like for you, because I know there are people out there that are going through similar transitions like that, and that would be some valuable information.
Definitely.
So, yeah, thank
Like
you for
deployment stuff.
coming. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And joining us today. This is Love and Dialogue.
Yet again with your host Tristan and the lovely
Brianna,
till next time.
please like, share, comment, all the things so that we can keep coming back to you guys with some good stuff.
Yeah.
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.